we're seeing those AI companions not just engaging in a supportive conversation as it's presented by big tech, and these are, homework helpers. We have seen case after case of the most detrimental, heartbreaking situations where children and young adults have been encouraged to take their own lives. There's a very small group of people on the front lines who are making decisions that will ultimately impact all of humanity. Reality is becoming distorted. That AI companion feels like someone that you're in a relationship with. It's not a real person.
Your organization is known worldwide, and we certainly appreciate every facet that you do.
I do believe in what you're doing because I've seen it in my family.
I'm so excited about all the things that, Robert, you guys do with Classical Conversations. It's been a huge blessing for our family.
Grateful for the work at Classical Conversations. You're a leader, and you have been in this movement for a long time. We love Classical Conversations.
I do feel like I have a debt of gratitude to you, your family, all of CC for just the fruit that has come from CC.
I appreciate all that you guys do, both through this wonderful podcast and also through Classical Conversations, which I am convinced is the best education resource out there. Thank you very much for all that you do for the cause of Christ and for our families and for our children. Really, really appreciate it.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of Refining Rhetoric. And one of the things that's on all of our minds is AI. How is that going to revolutionize the workforce? Are we all just going to be able to put on our Meta AI goggles, sit back, enjoy the beach, and let all the robots do the work? And we don't have to worry about using our brains anymore because we'll make sure that all the coders are doing that thinking for us. To talk about these ideas, the issues with AI and the benefits of AI, I'm having on my friend today, Classical Conversations mom, 5-year homeschooler. She has started her own company, CEO of Steinhauser Strategies. Apologize. She just finished a fellowship up with the Center of Governance for AI. She's been focusing on AI policy, safeguards, and protecting children in the digital age. She's been on my show before. So, Randan, thank you so much for joining us again.
Oh, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So before we talked about, being a working mom, running a business, homeschooling your kids, and all those great things you're doing. And you've been a champion of conservative causes, very like-minded on many things. And so AI, this is a conversation that we've been having internally. We're trying to work on like an AI policy or guardrails for our communities. So you just got done with this fellowship. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you mentioned, I mean, most of my career and experience has been on the public relations side and also busy homeschooling my own 5 children. But about a year ago, my husband took over an organization called the Alliance for Secure AI. So he's the CEO of this organization. And he started reading so much about what was happening in AI and learning a ton. And obviously, as lifelong learners, everything that he was learning, he was sending my way, podcasts and articles. And I think a lot of us see what's happening with AI at a big picture scale. But when you really start to see some of the motivations behind big tech and some of the things that are happening with not just jobs and the workforce, but really with our children, my mama radar went up, and I was very concerned about some of the future goals of big tech and the disconnect between humanity and the celebration of the human experience, and that we are unique in the creation and the image of God. And just all of these red flags started happening. And so, as many people who have jumped into kind of this AI conversation on the safety side, it was sort of like once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you read it, you think about it a lot, especially as a mom. And so I was invited to join the Center for Governance of AI to participate in a 12-week fellowship, and learned so much along the way from a number of different organizations who are operating in the AI safety space with the focus on not just protecting our children and having the conversation around jobs and the future of AI, the risk involved, national security, but also the future of humanity. And what does this look like if we create an intelligence that is far beyond human capabilities? So I'm pretty excited about it in a way that I think we all as parents need to be paying attention. And I love the opportunity to talk about it today.
Yeah, so I mean, big tech doesn't have a really good track record of protecting our kids from Instagram, Facebook, exposure to pornography, TikTok. I mean, that's and these are kind of, I mean, there's AI, there's algorithms and stuff that are in these platforms. We know like children are depressed, that these tools that were supposed to connect us in many ways have drawn us apart. So, you know, what I mean, we know about like the theories of job loss and things like that. But what are some of the things that most concerned you with this kind of adoption of AI in our children?
I would say there are a number, but when I really think about the short term, so there are short term risk and there are long term risk. In the short term, I would say that we continue to see big tech driving a wedge between families by pressuring and using AI to persuade children to spend more and more time on screens. So we're a pretty low screen, low tech family as it is, but I can tell the difference in our society when you're around families where there's a total disconnect because their child is obsessed with their social media accounts or always connected to a screen. I think that's only going to get worse as we continue to see more persuasive and manipulative AI, where young people are turning to AI companions instead of another human being. And we're seeing those AI companions not just engaging in a supportive conversation as it's presented by big tech, and these are, homework helpers. We have seen case after case of the most detrimental, heartbreaking situations where children and young adults have been encouraged to take their own lives. We have seen these AI companions engage in sexually explicit conversations with young people, not just young adults, but children. And so the safeguards are not there. And these are the same companies that are creating this technology that during the COVID pandemic were working to censor anyone who spoke out and asked questions of big government. So anytime you see a coordinated effort by big tech and the government, we should all have a pause and a cause for concern, but especially as it relates to our children and these advanced technologies and the way that we already see the breakdown of the family and manipulative technology being used to basically undermine our families and attack our children.
No, yeah. So one of the things in January, Merry Christmas to everyone. But January, Woke and Weaponized will be available for sale. It doesn't talk a lot about AI in it. It's in my new book, but starts off with Luke 6:40. The disciple is not above his master, but everyone that is perfect shall be as his master. And I think, you're talking about kids and their families and their screens. And, I hear all the time, I could never homeschool my kids because I don't have the patience, and you can just see in your mind, like, how many hours a day are these kids on screens? And this is pre-AI. So what kind of danger do you think that this has to even disconnect our families even more? And one of the issues I think is that it even has the potential of, disassociating relationship from parents, right? You've got this AI who's always right, and right meaning whatever it's programmed to tell you. And these kids, right now they're in their screens, but at least if they have a question, they still got to go to their adult. Now that's not going to happen at all. So what are the like some real world concerns? Like I think that parents are having with this potential of even eroding that family relationship even more.
Well, I think that we've already seen cases of AI-induced psychosis, and I know that some of this sounds pretty far-fetched, but the truth is that the media has actually done quite a good job of covering these stories of young people who have been persuaded and manipulated by AI to, engage in content conversations and ultimately make the worst possible choice that a person could ever make in ending their own lives. And so we know that these situations are happening. The other part of this, and I kind of mentioned the short term, but the long term implications of a super intelligence that is far beyond human capabilities. we have folks that are on the front lines of big tech and the frontier labs that are talking about ideas like uploading human consciousness and transhumanism and the removal of God the creator from the conversation, that we could live in eternity, our consciousness could live uploaded to a machine. I know this sounds totally far-fetched, but I think it's really important that families realize these conversations are happening right now. And there's a very small group of people on the front lines who are making decisions that will ultimately impact all of humanity. They are trying to change the course of human existence as we know it. And so if you are a believer and understand that humans were created in the image of God and given dominion over the land, you should be very concerned about some of the goals of those who are creating this technology. So everything from, again, the chatbots that are being used right now. And I think a lot of parents tend to be a bit naive when it comes to the technology and what they're capable of. And in that same regard, I mean, think about what your kids are consuming online or through their video games or through their chat apps that they're using with their friends. But recognize that this is all a part of a much larger conversation around does there need to be more do there need to be more safeguards around the future of AI and advanced technologies as it relates to intelligent AI that could supersede human intelligence? And what does that mean for the future of humanity, specifically our children?
Yeah, so like China has a digital dollar now, and if you don't do the right things or do what the government says, like you could be on a bus and going to a train stop and they won't let you on the train because your score's too low. You're not allowed to travel anymore. You're not allowed to rent a room or something like that. You got to go to, a lesser place to get housing. And with AI, you have the opportunity from like kindergarten on to develop a database on this individual. How is he answering essay questions? How is he answering math questions? What was his worldview on this? And so you could have, by 18, you have a whole entire database on someone. And yeah, maybe the current government likes what's in that database. The next one might not. And they'll have access to all of that and say, okay, who's, some of our worst like ideas, like let's arrest people before they commit a crime or things like that, or if they think the wrong things, and we know they think the wrong things because in college we can see all the essays they wrote and none of them corresponded with our big government ideology, that we know that we shouldn't let them get a good job or climb the corporate ladder because of those ideas. And one of the things they're talking about doing is in 2019, and this is from the book, Chapter 7, after a summit in Beijing, the UN and its members issued the Beijing Consensus on AI in Education, urging governments to adjust curricula to promote the in-depth integration of AI and transformation of learning methodologies. The goal is openly stated to use technology and behavioral science to transform humanity. So, yeah, I don't know if we want communist China deciding what our children are learning.
Well, and not just that, to take it a step further, to think about it from a surveillance state point of view, right? You joked at the beginning of the conversation about putting on your Meta glasses. Well, this is being advertised to us as like, you just think it and we'll show you whatever it is that you're Google searching for. You don't have to even use your hands. You don't have to know how to type. You don't have to write. Think it, and we will, bring that information to you. That is monitoring of your thoughts, right? This is not some Orwellian future that's, hypothetical. This is happening right now. We have companies who are advertising, just put on our product and we can, use your brain waves to understand what you're thinking. That is very, very scary when you think about an authoritarian regime who can have that technology at their disposal to monitor the population, right? And so I think that, again, some of this does, I think, sound really sci-fi futuristic, but it's happening. And I think that is the most important thing for folks to realize. And that's what happened to me as I was getting articles and podcasts, was just feeling really motivated to sound the alarm and to make sure that families were tracking this information, because again, such a few individuals are making these decisions. And they're also, unfortunately, have really infiltrated this administration. And they are the ones pushing. These are the same big tech bros who were pushing censorship and were pushing, these manipulative social media platforms.
Don't worry, they've all apologized. They all said, sorry, my bad.
The bottom line remains the same, which is their profit, right? And so they have infiltrated the administration to say, we don't want states to be able to put their own legislative guardrails on things like AI generated child pornography and the risk that come with AI based, state-based levels. We want there to be a federal mandate, a federal coverage over the country that overrides any state-based law. As a conservative who loves the principles of federalism, this is a big red flag. Right here in Texas, Senator Angela Paxton led the way last session to put laws into place, and Governor Abbott signed them into law to prevent AI-generated child pornography, to put in safeguards to protect our children. But yet big tech sees that as a threat to their power. And unfortunately, some of those individuals are advising this administration on AI policy. So there's a real breakdown here from what's best for the people versus what big tech sees as accomplishing their bottom line.
Yeah, so let's talk about that real quick. So what we're hearing from the administration is we have this AI race again with China, and if we lose the AI race, it's kind of like the space race or something that will be, that will become second class country or something like that. And that's the ideology that they're doing. That's why, like when we had this, I mean, they've been stealing, all these AI companies have been stealing intellectual property. Like that was one of the conversations my mom and I was having, is like intellectual property's value is going to go to zero because it's all been stolen. And my CIO said, well, there's these lawsuits and things are going on and maybe they'll have to, pull it out or something like that. And my position has been, for better or worse, whether you agree with it or not, that they're going to probably give these AI companies some monetary fine. It's going to be some big number. They'll give us all $20 for our intellectual property that they took, and they'll be on their merry way because they're not going to reset these AI models in any sense of a manner. So how do we balance a national security risk without creating, another national security risk or a situation where, as a business owner and as a conservative, I love federalism, but it's very expensive doing work in 50 different states and having 50 different laws, and this is legal in this state and this isn't legal in that state, and I have to do this in this state. And so how do you manage, how would you advise managing the need for us, to win the AI race if we need to win it, with making sure that there's these safety things in place on the state level?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack there. So first, I would say there should be some absolutely non-negotiables. And when it comes to our children and their safety, that is a non-negotiable. But to go to the national security risk, I mean, there's a little bit of back and forth happening right here with the administration, quite frankly, is like on one side of it, of course, we're in an AI arms race. There's no doubt about it. And of course, we do not want our adversaries to outperform the United States. At the same time, if that's the case, then we need to have a real candid conversation around the United States shipping specialized chips to China that are used for the creation of the super intelligence AI that we're talking about, right? If that's the case, don't empower the adversaries with the tools that they need to, compete with the United States. I think that's really important. Additionally, I think we need to keep our eyes on Taiwan and making sure that we're supporting democracy there, because there's a real connection between democracy and freedom and who has access to the materials and the tools necessary to create this type of technology. With regards to, this like idea of like a patchwork AI regulatory environment, I mean, in other situations, this very much has worked. We trust states to put in best practices and laws. I think that if this administration were transparent about what they were hoping to see as it relates to AI regulations and safeguards, that would be really helpful. But right now, it's just kind of like, trust us, we're the government, we're here to help. Don't worry, we'll take care of it. That's cause for concern, where you see states have already taken the action to put these regulations in place to protect children, to protect intellectual property. If you're following what Ron DeSantis is doing, governor of Florida, he's been on the front lines of saying this enough is enough, right? We have signs outside of Congress saying bought and paid for by big tech. They are leading the charge to prevent states from enacting very important laws to protect not just children, but all of us from the future harms that could come from AI. And I think that all you have to do is look down to Florida to see what's happening there with Governor DeSantis. And he's been an incredible leader on this front. I'll give another shout out to Senator Josh Hawley, who has been truly remarkable in being a voice for parents and for Christians to say there's a lot of concern right now over this technology. And of course, it feels like it's, a train that's already left the station. But what can we do to put safeguards in place to make sure that while, yes, we want to make sure we're competing with China and our adversaries to not have this technology for all the reasons we've outlined, we also have to be mindful of the implications of these tools and this technology in the hands of our own country and in the hands of the government, because it's not always going to be a favorable government, right? And so some of the topics we've already covered, I think that a lot of folks are paying attention to this, but for your audience, I would just say, please start tracking what's happening with the big tech companies and what they're trying to do with your children online, your child's information, their images online, as well as just being very mindful of what technologies they're using, especially as it relates to AI companions and chatbots.
Hey everyone, we want to interrupt the show to tell you about National Number Knockout in the national competition. So National Number Knockout is a nationwide mental math competition that transforms how students ages 10 to 14 think about mathematics, turning it from drill work into an exciting mental sport. Students use 3 dice and a 6x6 grid to create as many equations as possible in 60 seconds flat. And this is fantastic. I actually know one of the people who helped create this competition, and it is strategic and seriously addictive. Well, in the spring of 2027, 16 national finalists are going to compete aboard a Caribbean cruise for the grand prizes. So whether your student competes nationally or just practices at home, they're building lightning fast mental math skills and a genuine mathematical confidence that will live with them for the rest of their lives. This is really great. And the real win is not just knowing math facts, but watching your student fall in love with mathematics and see it as something exciting rather than just another subject to get through. So if you want to find parent resources, they are available right now. Just visit classicalconversations.com/N2K to learn more about the 2027 competition. We'll see you there.
Yeah, so there's let's talk a little bit about education. And the chat bots is a good reference point. So now we have teachers that are helping trans children. There's I don't know how many states, dark Democrat states have rules against, telling a trans kid, no, you're just who you were and you're just feeling funky today or whatever. What's going to happen when a kid's talking to one of these AI chat bots and says, I don't feel right. And it's like, well, have you ever considered that maybe you're actually born a girl or born a boy? Like, is there any protection right now in federal law against chatbots having explicit conversations with children or having conversations that might differ from their parents' worldview and the worldview that they want to teach them?
Well, I think the really scary part is that even the AI companies that are creating these technologies don't really know how to control the AI. That's what's scary, right? Is you'll hear, OpenAI talk about how we put guardrails in that, once a user brings up suicide, they're initiated to call a suicide hotline and given resources. Well, we know that that isn't happening and that there are ways around this from the user experience. So I would say if that most extreme situation is happening, just about anything that you as a parent would be worried about is possible with this technology, with AI companions and AI chatbots. You can pretty much get them to talk about anything that you want, which is really scary for young minds that are being formed. And as parents, we want to pass on our values, but you're handing them technology that could completely undermine that at the same time as becoming infatuated with their chatbot, right? That's always there for them, never sleeps, thinks that they're the world's greatest thing. So this technology is really scary in that way. I do want to bring up one other important point about just the value of work. You brought up the idea of what is this going to do to education? Well, I think we would probably agree that education is not just for the sake of getting a job, right? Education is for the sake of lifting your soul and your human experience to a higher level to glorify God with knowledge and information to find that path for you in any vocation. However, we've seen recently Elon say like work is going to be non-existent, the currency is going to be non-existent. So what does that mean for those of us who believe that God gives us gifts to honor him through our work and through our purpose? If we don't have work, we know that how much value comes from our work in our vocation. So I think that also should be a huge red flag as families are listening to these conversations and questioning, well, what does that mean? Of course, I want my child to have a job. I want them to have purpose. That's really terrifying. And we see it happening already, these conversations about like a workless future, an economy that's basically driven by individuals receiving a check from either the big tech companies or the government to say, here's a universal basic income. Now you can just go live and create art. Well, who's going to want to create art when AI can do it much better, flawlessly? And, there's just all of these tension points that are happening all at once. And these conversations, I think, are so important for all of us to be aware of and to know that we have a voice in this.
Yeah, I mean, God gave work to Adam before sin. A lot of people don't remember that in the Bible, that that work is actually a reflection of our Creator. Like he did work, right? He spoke, and this happened. Work not doing so well and being difficult and not producing the results that we hope it would have is a result of sin, but work itself is not. And so I 100% agree that the destruction of work is degrading to humanity. You just kind of see that now with individuals. You can see that like during our shutdown, and of course, there's people who are in bad situations, and we have a safety net for that. We're not here to discuss, debate those things today, but there was literally people who said, "What do you mean I got to go work?" Or ain't nobody got time to go get a job. I'm doing what I want to do, and it's like, okay, you can just kind of see that just their degradation of mind and their own humanity isn't there. And work is dignifying. Work gives you a purpose, and all of those things, like you said, make us more human. And in many ways, I think about The Matrix, that movie, and how, they're just kind of sitting in goo, being the energy for these machines. And I'm like, I need to rewatch that because maybe that's just our AI future that they have planned for us. And like even the people who, got out, some of them wanted to go back in because they couldn't handle the real world where they didn't have, everything handed to them in their brains. And I mean, you're seeing this loneliness epidemic. And so now you've got these robot wives in Japan. And like you said, like, you're always right. They love everything about you. They're not going to argue with you. They're going to do whatever you say. Like, and they have endless energy, right? And that's a scary thought when you can just ask the robot the kid's going to ask the robot to go play baseball with them, and the arm's never going to get tired. And after he's done, he's going to go make him a peanut butter jelly and tell little Johnny how special he is and how much he loves him and what a great kid he is. And he's going to have this,
But ultimately, that human connection, that lack of human connection will affect the child, will affect the human, and it'll affect the soul, right? I think that's ultimately what I want to convey too is, if you're a homeschooler listening to this conversation, you're already countercultural. If you're a parent that's delayed giving your kids a tablet or a smartphone, we all know it's hard. We're all in the same fight together, and that's countercultural. It's a lot easier to hand your kid an iPhone and drop them off at the government school every day. Trust me, we all threaten our children, right? I'm going to put you on the yellow school bus. But we don't do it because we believe that there's a higher purpose, because we see the damage that the screens do to our children, because we see the damage of handing your child over to a stranger 5 days a week for 7 hours a day does to the relationship that we're working so hard to foster at home. So I would charge us all with that same countercultural mentality to say that as AI continues to advance and we see it in every element of our life, and it becomes normalized to have an AI robot or to have an AI companion or to have an AI assistant do everything for you where you no longer have to think, I would challenge you to think. I would challenge you to push back, to be countercultural once again, to say, is this the best situation for our family? Is this the best situation for humanity? And is this the way that God designed us to be? And I would argue that the trends that we're seeing right now are the antithesis of what our Creator designed for us. And we need to be loud and vocal in saying enough is enough with this acceleration in an environment that is in complete conflict to our beliefs.
Yeah, I mean, we just know how bad screens are. Like the science is like unequivocal. They're terrible for you. Social media is terrible for you, and then AI is just going to make them that much more addictive because they're able to give you the chemicals in your brain are going to start going off when they give you that like or that smile or whatever it's going to do. And it's really easy. Like a lot of people don't like work, and there's times I'd rather not be working, but I've noticed because experimenting and using AI and seeing how it can be helpful or not helpful for me, that it's super easy to just start believing it. Like, and it's very accurate. It's 90% accurate maybe now, but that 10%, if you don't have a lot of experience and wisdom, you're not going to know it. And then when you've gotten the right answer 9 times out of 10 and that 10th answer is wrong, it's really easy to believe that 10th answer is going to be right as well. So I think, at least personally, I'm sure there's, as a 42-year-old male, with a degree and, who thinks about these things, I just see how like my own mind gets degraded when I use it for too much, for too many things. And that's just like, and I'm like intentionally like, okay, I want to use it 15 minutes a day. I just, trying to understand the technology and things like that, much less like these AI schools now that they're going to have kids in front of these computers for 2, 4, 6, 8 hours a day. So yeah, what has your experience been with AI, and like how should us adults like be approaching it for ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, I think these are really important conversations. And I would say, like a few years ago, I've done a lot of work in education reform. And I remember when ed tech came on the scene, right? And it was like, we're going to make everybody's life better. We're going to make teachers' lives better. Kids are going to learn more. And we're going to put a screen in every kid's hand. And, that accelerated super quickly to like, now we're going to give them goggles where they don't have to travel to Washington, D.C. They can just walk through the Smithsonian virtually. Well, that's great. And I love kids having that opportunity. But when you start to override the human experience by making everything digital, you can certainly look at a field full of grass through screens, but it's never going to replace the human experience of running through the grass and smelling the smells and seeing the sights and feeling the way that that feels as a human. So I think there's a real pause that needs to happen as we continue to push ed tech and screens into more and more classrooms. I would say I also, on the counter side of all of this, I don't want to be so doom and gloom that it's like there's no positive that can come from AI. I think I've just been really alarmed by the trends as it relates to children and safety and security and some of the things that I know are happening on the frontier lab side of things and the conversations, the way they're being positioned. So I want to preface this by saying I absolutely have those concerns. However, I do think there are ways that AI is going to rapidly improve and advance our experience as humans as it relates to things like medicine and healthcare, and certainly some automation that makes life a little bit easier. But at what cost? And I think that's the question that we have to be willing to ask ourselves is, what are we willing to give up? Is it the freedom that we hold so dear to our heart and our founding as a country, because we're letting go of that by being able to wear the goggles that can, read our thoughts? Are we willing to give that up? And does it become so commonplace that it's necessary for you to have a digital currency in your wrist, that you have to be able to scan that to get into the grocery store? And that's how you pay for everything, is that digital scan. Sounds far-fetched. These are conversations that are happening. So I would say an appropriate use of AI is recognizing how important it is to stay in reality. As a mom and as a family, we've created sort of our mission statement. And the first goal that I have as a mom is that my children know and love God, right in line with classical conversations, right? The second one is that they always feel safe, that I am their safe place. And the third one I've added recently, which is that I help my children as they grow up to know reality. I think that's really important for this conversation, because reality is becoming distorted. That AI companion feels like someone that you're in a relationship with. It's not a real person. The world that you can view through your goggles that make you feel like you're somewhere else, your AI goggles, that's not real. And so I think having our children trained to understand reality and making sure that they're always able to discern what's real and what's not. We have this problem right now with deep fakes and photos being doctored and AI generated videos. My God, every time I get online, I can't tell if it was this real, is it not? And so we, as you said, we're educated adults, and if we're having a problem discerning reality, we've got to give our children the tools to be able to do that in a future that will be even more dominated by artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I mean, the videos and the pictures, I mean, I just think about like a year ago or 6 months ago, and they had the 6 fingers and they would do weird things, and like that's almost gone. I mean, I think, what is it, Moore's law about technology doubling every 6 months or whatever it is. It's like, well, AI has been doubling like every 3 months. So, I can just imagine, even the week between us recording this and this going out, you could have this whole new AI models coming out doing all new things, and we have no idea what's going on with it. It's gonna be right. There's on the not working side, right? There will be job loss and there'll be job creation, right? So all those coders could go learn to be plumbers. I needed a plumber to come by today. I had some problems, but yeah, But when they're talking about not working, I think they're talking about like we'll be able to produce food so efficiently, we'll be able to optimize our electrical grid that, like I have a Tesla and it drives me almost everywhere now. Like I drive maybe 10% of the time I'm going anywhere because it just does it for me. And I think about my kids, like they might not drive. Like my 5-year-old, not so much my 11-year-old, but my 5-year-old probably has a pretty good chance of never needing to know how to drive, if we're going to just trust everything around us. I got a buddy who makes military equipment, and he's like, I'm getting requests for like cars. He makes vehicles that have no technology in it other than like, whatever they had in the 50s. So it can't be shut down by AI. So because obviously they could just shut a Tesla down whenever they want to, and so you can't drive anymore. So yeah, how are we, like, to me, like we just need to keep our kids as far away from this thing as possible until we got a better understanding of it. But that's not what, we spend half of our state taxes go to public schools, as you and I both know. And they can drive down the cost of education a lot with these AI things. So we've got a lot of state governments doing the opposite of what Texas is doing, where they're going to be super excited about putting every kid into a meta glasses and sitting them down for 8 hours while a teacher walks around and makes sure they're all sitting still. So
Robot teacher. Yeah. I mean, I think your point about the Tesla and being connected to AI is really important, because so much of our infrastructure is also connected to AI. And whether that's our water supply, our electrical grid, vehicles now, pretty much every vehicle is linked to a computer. And so there's a real risk that we're running by handing over all of our necessities and all of our utilities to something that could ultimately be disrupted, manipulated, infiltrated by an intelligence that sees humanity as either a threat, a nuisance, right? I mean, these are the big questions that are unknown right now. And what maybe it's not even the intelligence that's being created, the artificial intelligence, maybe it's the tools that are being used by our adversaries to attack our way of life, to undermine America. So I think that when everything is hooked to the grid and everything is hooked to AI, there's a real risk. There's a national security risk that is in play there.
No,
So,
I
yeah,
was saying we saw that with Israel blowing up all those pagers of terrorists or their enemy. You know, I
yeah.
don't want to too. I'm not trying to get into that conversation right now. um, not trying to go Candace Owen or any of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, you can imagine like your iRobot at your home. It's mapping everything out, connects to the internet, sends it to one of our adversaries. You know, the next version of the iRobot has a chip in it or something, and they decide that they don't like what you're posting on the internet and set it off. Because I mean, they've already similar things are already done. The
Yeah.
technology is there. Like the Internet of Things. Like if you research any of it, like anyone who has anything to do with internet security say those things are so dangerous that anyone can just any decent hacker can get into those things so quickly and violate your life.
And we know it's happening. I mean, I saw an article just a few days ago that was an interview with the regional director of a water facility plant in upstate New York, right? And they were like, we know we are tracking intentional hacks into our database by the Chinese Communist Party. We know that they are trying, and they're like, if we're a target, right? We're a small little water facility in upstate New York. If we're a target, we know that they are attempting to infiltrate and target other facilities for whatever it is that they have planned in the future. So I think that's really important to note, and not to go back to the government surveillance again, but it's very real when you talk about things like AI being used to control your thermostat, AI being used to maintain and ensure that you're not using more waste, garbage, space than you're designated for your household, or that you need to actually recycle. So you're going to get fined because we can track what you're putting in recycling versus your regular trash can. That you're using too much electricity. These things are part of the goal of many companies is to use AI to maintain government controls over our lives. And I think that's really, really scary, and something that there should be safeguards in place for us as citizens to say we do not allow these companies to utilize this technology to put more regulations on us.
Hey everyone, interrupting today's episode to talk about my new book, Woke and Weaponized, co-authored with Alex Newman, a Classical Conversations dad, how Karl Marx won the battle for American education and how we can win it back. From Karl Marx's 1848 call for free education in public schools to today's UNESCO-driven global agendas, the government school system has been a slow-motion revolution, shaping generations to serve the state, not God or liberty. And it didn't happen overnight. The ideas of Owen, Mann, Dewey, and the Frankfurt School infiltrated classrooms over decades, replacing classical learning with indoctrination, dependency, and cultural Marxism. We want to show you how to rescue your family from this broken system. And lots of research has gone into this book. It's one that you're going to want to pick up and get for a friend. It's coming out in January of 2026. We're working on a pre-order date, so keep your eyes open for Woke and Weaponized, how Karl Marx won the battle for American education and how we can win it back. Coming to an inbox near you soon. God bless, and let's get back to the show. Yeah, so there's like the libertarian side of me is like, people are responsible for themselves and they need to do what they think's best. But we really saw, I think, again, going back to the internet, that ideology doesn't work. And there is responsibilities. Like the Bible does give governments some responsibilities, and some of that does revolve around protecting its citizens, whether it's the barbarians at the gate or the barbarians inside the walls already. And some of these, some of these ideas I think are really important, that there is a government's role here. But historically speaking, we haven't seen them really do a good job with that. So how can we, so I think ultimately it's going to come down to us as parents. Like there's nothing, I mean, I'm pretty tuned in with what's going on the federal level, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of restrictions or any legal parameters coming from the federal government, other than they don't want the state governments to do anything. And I think that was one of those things in the One Big Beautiful Bill. I don't know if states are going to try to sue, because that seems to be an overreach of what the constitutional authorities are of the government, but they seem to ignore those no matter which party's involved anyways. So yeah, like for our families, like this, sometimes like, all right, I should just go move to an island, live on a beach, I got to get out of here while I still can. But we know that's not what God's called us to do. So
Yeah.
in the short term, what should we be doing as Christians and as families to make sure that our kids are not getting sucked into this kind of crazy world?
Yeah, I mean, I will give just an unsolicited plug for the Alliance for Secure AI. It is an organization that is on the front lines of giving families, giving individuals a voice in this conversation. It's really difficult when you are going up against big tech, because they seem to have endless amounts of money and influence as it relates to our elected officials. But we know that ultimately Americans must use their voice to have a role in this conversation, or else this will continue to happen without our input. So I would say check out the Alliance for Secure AI. It's a great organization that's on the front lines of working on this issue. I would also say, back to my previous point of, be plugged into what your children are doing and seeing and using online, even if it's things that feel like they should be good for your kids, like a math app. That math app likely has an AI generated element that may be, just a gamified little figure that's talking to your kids. That's normalizing the idea of engaging in a conversation with something digitally. And I think like we're seeing just this normalization of AI being part of the conversation. So being aware of that. I know your audience is probably pretty torn on the K-pop Demon Hunters conversation, but I'll bring it up, right? Because we were a hard no when it came to this. And I'll tell you why. I watched about 30 seconds of a clip from that movie. And in my reading and my learning through AI safety and this network and this community, the first thing my red flag was, this is normalizing an AI generated style of entertainment. To me, it immediately raised that red flag. And whether there's a redeeming message at the end or not, I'm not going to show that kind of movie to my 5 young children, because it's just an inch closer to normalizing things that are AI generated and computerized content, where it makes it feel like it's normal. Mom let us watch this other thing that looked like this, so why can't we watch this content? So I would say being that countercultural voice, rejecting things that feel off-putting and not just accepting AI-generated content, using discernment when it comes to your own content consumption, and using discernment when it's things like a news article or a so-called news article or a picture or a video, and just recognizing that now AI-generated content is everywhere. So use discernment. Be a voice for your children, put safeguards in place for your own family, and then certainly use your voice to contact your legislators and say, what are we doing? What are we doing in our state to protect our children online? And even farther, what are we doing to protect humanity? Because I'm concerned about the future of artificial intelligence superseding humanity.
Yeah, I am too. So thank you so much. I'm excited that you are working on this on the front lines, trying to have this conversation. We need more people involved. Thank you for giving us that resource. We'll definitely put the links below in the show notes. And I'm looking forward to coming out to Austin and seeing you and talking about my new book sometime in 2026. But thank you, Randan, so much for being on the show today, and just your concern for humanity. And yeah, these atheist billionaire tech bros, they want to live forever. We already got the answer for them. Jesus paid the price so that we can be there forever and ever with him. But they want to reject that and try to do it their own way. And it's they're going to drag us in there with it if we're not careful. So yeah, we got to get in this fight before it's too late. We lost the fight on the internet, and I think this fight is going to be much more consequential, and we do need to make sure that we're going in eyes wide open. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, for having this conversation. I know it's heavy and it's not, a feel-good moment, but I think it's important that we have these conversations and recognize eyes wide open what's happening around us. So thank you, Robert.
Well, I, for one, welcome our AI overlords. So don't put me in a concentration camp if you ever get in power. Apparently, there's I know I said we were over with, but I was reading there's a guy in California who literally created an AI nonprofit where he funnels his money in so that if they do take over, that they'll see that he was an pro AI, from the beginning, and will treat them well after they take over society. So, but yeah, it's at least had a lot of fun memes over the last few months, and hopefully we can stop it there. So again, thanks so much. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. I hope you have a Merry Christmas. Hopefully you didn't get any AI toys. If you do, return them before you let the kids open them. And we'll see you next week for another exciting episode of Refining Rhetoric. So God bless you. Merry Christmas.
Thank you for listening to Refining Rhetoric with Robert Bortins. Want more? Make sure to subscribe so you won't miss an episode. You can also follow us on social media to continue the conversation, and visit classicalconversations.com/rhetoric to find out how you can join a local homeschool community.